Welcome back, Packer fans. I'm Untitled Chapter, host of Porn on the Packers podcast. Thank you for being here, and thank you for checking out this video. The 6-1 Packers, the 5-2 Chiefs. This is the headline game heading into the season, and now we're not really sure what we're going to get ourselves into. I am going to do my best to try and dissect this game, give you some of my game preview, my final thoughts, and of course, a very special 2 game predictions, because there's a lot of uncertainty heading into this Kansas City matchup on Sunday night. So without further ado, it's time to pour ourselves another Packers podcast. So real quick, before we get started, I have to say I am 225 subscribers away from my magical goal of 1,000 subscribers. So in YouTube world, 1,000 subscribers is a really big milestone. It's a really big deal, especially since I started my first video, my very first Packer related video was a little over 6 months ago. It's so much fun. It's been just a blast to watch this thing grow. And all the Packer fans that have come out there, I mean, yes, there's 775 of you, but I appreciate every single one of you. It's very early on, and I've already had myself a great amount of loyal viewers, so thank you. If you haven't subscribed already, if you've been watching the content, please subscribe. Thank you very much. And on a side note, in the comments section down below on this video, I have noticed a trend over my past couple videos that the opponents love to just talk a whole lot of shit, quite frankly, in that comment section. So if you are a Packers fan, I would love it if you could just comment whatever you want to talk about. If you want to talk about score predictions, opinions of the matchup, your favorite drinks, or even your guilty pleasure chick flick that you like to watch alone in the private times of your life and just have a good cry. I'm fine with just talking about anything down there in the comment section. As long as it's not, in this particular case, Kansas City fans talking up a whole bunch of smack, because there's no point in me even commenting on it. And then we've been fortunate thus far to come away with some victories, and I'm not going to go back there and revisit each comment and say, yeah, you're a dumb fool. So yeah, hit that subscribe button, comment down below, go Pack go. Let's get ourselves started. So I'd love to start these videos with a real quick recap of the previous game, our victory over the Oakland Raiders, that lovely 42-24 blowout. I tackled a lot of what I want to talk about on this game on Tuesday's live and Q&A, which, by the way, I did spend about 4 hours watching tutorial videos on how to use the streaming software. So that should improve moving forward. But to recap, the amount of fun that this Packers team is having, and more specifically, the amount of fun that Aaron Rodgers is having is just fun for me and the rest of us Packer fans to just go out there and witness. And anyone that bleeds green and gold just has to love what they're seeing just amongst or in general with this Green Bay community. So it gives me chills for what this team could potentially accomplish as we look forward to the months ahead. And Aaron Rodgers, if we're going to talk about anybody from last week's game, you have to talk about Aaron Rodgers. He officially brought back the doubles, State Farm double check touchdown belt, whatever you want to call it. He threw for 429 yards, 5 touchdowns. He had 5 different receiving touchdowns, or receivers that caught touchdowns. And yes, he had that one touchdown which led to the discount double check. I got it. The discount double check victory belt, or the Super Bowl belt, however you want to look at it. He is the first player, of course, in franchise history to have a perfect passer rating, and that one's incredible, because if you look at the remaining 2 teams in the NFL who have yet to have a quarterback with a perfect passer rating, we're looking at the Jacksonville Jaguars, we're looking at the Carolina Panthers. Both these teams were expansion teams in 1995. The Packers stretched back 100 years, and they finally, through the Brett Favre, the Bart Starrs, they finally got themselves a quarterback with a perfect passer rating. And Aaron Rodgers isn't new to this by any means either. I mean, he's been playing the game for a long time at a very high level. So that's just a crazy thing to throw out there, crazy stat. Green Bay had 8 different receivers with multiple catches. And although the rushing committee only put together a combined 57 yards, it wasn't because that rushing team or rushing group struggled by any means. It just had a lot to do with that passing game having an absolute exploding performance. I think the defense, on the other hand, had a much or far less successful game. They allowed Jacobs to rush for 124 yards. Waller finished the game with 126 yards at that tight end position. He did have 2 touchdowns, and the tackling left much to be desired for most of the game. Furthermore, it was a back and forth game. I mean, I rewatched the game. There's a condensed version out there, 12 minutes, 13 minutes, that just goes through all the plays throughout the game. Watch that, and really, until Carr fumbles that ball into the end zone at the very end of the second quarter, resulting in Oakland. I mean, he fumbles that, shifts the entire momentum of the game. Oakland does not get the ball back until they are down 28-10. And otherwise, if Oakland goes on to score there, you figure they probably would have scored. You figured they're up 17-14 at halftime, and then the entire dichotomy of that football game changes. So far through 7 weeks, we have seen the defense win us games. We've seen the offense win us some games, but we still have not seen a complete performance by both the offense and the defense, both sides of the ball, all 4 quarters. And I do believe the Packers are now just starting to find their groove. I think after that Oakland victory, the offense is, I don't want to say they've arrived, but we've finally got that first glimpse or that first view of what a Matt LaFleur type of offense can look like with Aaron Rodgers under center. So Aaron Rodgers, he has put himself in the MVP conversation once again, and he is on pace for over 4,600 yards, 30 touchdowns, and only 5 interceptions. And that was after a brutally slow start in this offense, this Matt LaFleur offense that took a while to get going. Weeks 1 through 4, weeks through 5, however you want to look at it. After that slow start, he is still pacing for an incredible season and some really great statistics. On the running side, you have Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams. They've both proven to be a formidable 1-2 punch. With the absence of Adams, our depth at receiver has had a lot of experience, and this is going to open up a ton of options for Rodgers and LaFleur. Once Adams comes back, you have these guys with some experience. You kind of know what you have out of them. You built some rapport with Aaron Rodgers. So that's a huge benefit. So the offense is absolutely rolling. And in fact, in the last 3 weeks, the offense has put up the 5th most points per game in the NFL, and they're averaging 33.0 points per game in the last 3 weeks. So if this is just a precursor of what we can expect moving forward, a lot of good things are going to be coming for that Green Bay offense and that Green Bay team. On the defensive side of the ball, everyone was talking about how, it was nothing but the defense when we started the season very early on. It's overcome some injuries, so we've had Darnell Savage, who's been out. We obviously had Oren Burks missing time early. You look at Montrevious Adams. You look at Kenny Clark struggling with a knee injury. Even Zadarius Smith struggling with some injuries. Kevin King. So this defense has gone through some injuries, but we've seen the emergence of a future Pro Bowler. I'd like to believe in Jair Alexander. He's had an awesome start to the season. We put up some of the best pass rushers in the league, or we have some of the best pass rushers in the league, looking at Zadarius and Preston Smith. And then outside of that Eagles games, the Packers haven't allowed more than 24 points in a single game, and for that reason, they are ranked number 9th, averaging 19.9 points per game for the entire year. So Matt LaFleur himself has the best start for a rookie coach in franchise history. I think very early on he is in the running for Coach of the Year. But why are we even talking about awards? Maybe I'm getting myself a little bit off base because it is week 8 of the NFL, but the locker room is completely bought in. The culture's there, the belief is there, the talent is there, and most importantly, these guys are all playing for each other. You have to love what the Packers have done so far through these first 7 weeks of the NFL season. I think the next step for Green Bay to show that they truly are a Super Bowl contender is that they need to find consistency, and they need to maintain these performances. They can't get complacent. They still have to continue to improve each week, but they can't have any more of those up and down games. They can't have any more of those situations where they have a strong first half and a rocky second half where they're hanging on to victories. We've seen kind of a complete performance of what this offense can do for all 4 quarters. And at times, like I said before, we've seen the defense for all 4 quarters, or most of 4 quarters. So we got to see the full team. I'll dive deeper into all this, especially when we hit our bye week in a couple weeks. But for now, let's check in with that Packers injury report. So for the first time in a month, there's actually a glimmer of hope on the injury report. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about it because there's not a lot to talk about. So Adams looks as though he will officially be a game time decision on Sunday night. Though he hasn't practiced all week. He didn't practice Wednesday or Thursday. He was out with the team during stretches and warm-ups and should find himself back on the field in the very near future. I bit my tongue. The very near future. And then another bright spot for that defense is obviously Darnell Savage. Now, he was a limited participant on Thursday's practice, but he was a full participant on Wednesday's walkthrough. It was just a mental walkthrough that they went through. But his high ankle sprain injury that kept him out the last 3 games looks to have healed, and the addition of Savage on that defense, I think, is just a massive improvement for that entire team. I am super excited to get him back. Like I stated in last week's video, I think Savage is far more important to the success of that Packers team than Adams. That's not taking anything away from Adams, but he's just a complete difference maker in that secondary, and I can't wait to get Savage back. In general, there are only 18 players currently listed on the injury report. I don't foresee any of these names or these players listed on the report missing any significant time or any time. Corey Linsley did show up on the injury report as did not participate on Thursday, but I'm thinking that's one of those precautionary things, or he's just taking a day off. And then Adams could be the only question mark when it comes to Sunday night's game. So speaking of which, Sunday night's game will mark only the 13th meeting between these two teams. It will be their 12th regular season meeting, but of course the two teams faced off in the first ever Super Bowl, January 15th, 1967. I believe Green Bay did go on to win that one, 35-10 or something like that. But Kansas City overall in this matchup against Green Bay, they do own they lead the overall series, 7 wins, 4 losses, 1 tie. Green Bay has won the last 2 of the 3 matchups, but one thing that I got a little bit of criticism for last time is that I talk a little bit too much about history. And, this is a whole new team. This is a new Packers team. This is a new Kansas City team. I like talking about some of this stuff. And since 2002, Green Bay has a 15-3 record against the AFC West. That includes 2 of the last games that they played against the AFC West. They beat the Broncos back there in Week 3. They obviously beat Oakland, and then we face off against the Chargers. So we're gonna get these AFC games out of the way here in the very near future. But, they've had success in general against these AFC West teams since 2002 at least. Green Bay has won both of their road games this season, so this will be our third road game at Arrowhead on Sunday night. And then both of Kansas City's losses, surprisingly, have come at home at Arrowhead. And that's honestly quite shocking to me. You look at Arrowhead, it's the loudest stadium in the NFL. You figure there's a whole lot of home field advantage there. But that's where they ended up losing their last 2 games. Back in April, which was when the schedule was released, Sunday night was probably highlighted, circled, starred, stamped, delivered, you name it. This was going to be my marquee matchup. This was the game I was looking most forward to. You have Mahomes versus Rodgers, Andy Reid versus a young coach and Matt LaFleur. You have Sunday Night Football. You're on the road. It's a hostile environment. However, with the very likely but somehow not confirmed yet possibility that Mahomes doesn't play, this game becomes a rather odd one for me to dissect and unravel. Both these teams lead the division heading into Week 8, so you have Green Bay, like I said, sitting there at 6-1. The Vikings did come away with the victory last night against the Washington Redskins, so they're hot on the heels of the Packers. They're sitting at 6-2. Technically, at this point, a half a game ahead of Green Bay, but with a victory, they'll go back up a game and a half on the Vikings. The Chiefs, on the other hand, they will obviously they're 5-2. They're looking to navigate kind of the next couple of weeks, I think, without Patrick Mahomes. And although Mahomes has practiced in a limited fashion on both Wednesday and Thursday, Andy Reid and the rest of that Chiefs front office would be high on meth if they decided that they should put Patrick Mahomes out there on the field on Sunday. I think it's the most foolish thing that you could possibly do. And yes, you did hear me right, high on meth. I'll probably reference that a couple more times throughout this video. But this is your franchise quarterback. This is your future. This is a guy that you want to have on your team for 10 to 15 years. Have we already forgot about a little guy over there at the Indianapolis Colts by the name of Andrew Luck, who gave up, or he didn't give up, wrong term. He retired at such a young age because he just couldn't stay healthy, because he couldn't get himself an offensive line to keep him upright, and he went through these injuries. He was super talented, but you kind of wasted that away, and they're doing okay over there with Brissett, but that's something that these Chiefs have to be very mindful of if they're going to go out there and put or risk Patrick Mahomes after he suffered a dislocated kneecap. Give the guy some rest. I understand you're trying to keep pace with the Patriots. Maybe you're trying to keep pace with the Baltimore Ravens and get yourself a first-round bye. But if one thing that we learned from the Packers Super Bowl back in 2011, just make the playoffs as a 6th seed, and you have just as big of a chance at winning the Super Bowl as anyone else that goes out there. So the Chiefs through 7 weeks with a healthy Patrick Mahomes. Kansas City started the season right where they left off last year. They started the season 4-0. They were averaging a whopping 33.8 points per game. Patrick Mahomes threw for over 1,500 yards in those first 4 games, and they seemed like a team that just could not be beaten, the unstoppable force. Oh my gosh, how are we ever going to compete? But then in weeks 5 and 6, they did get their 2 losses on the season. They were back-to-back losses. They did manage to squeak out a late victory in week 4 against Detroit. But as Packer fans, we all know a thing or two about close victories against Detroit, and with that, I'm going to take a quick drink break. So a win over the Broncos last week put Kansas City back in the win column, and even though Mahomes left the game with a little over 5 minutes, or with 5 minutes into the second quarter, Kansas City still managed to put up an additional 20 points for the rest of the game. 7 of those points came on defense. 3 of those points came from a field goal that they were on the 3-yard line because that's when Mahomes got injured. They couldn't get it in the end zone, so they ended up kicking a field goal. In fact, their 9 possessions that they had on last Thursday's game after Mahomes left the game went something like this. They had a punt, end of the half, punt, touchdown, punt, field goal, punt. So I look at that particular, possessions, set of series after Mahomes leaves. It's very atypical of what you have out of a Kansas City team that typically has Patrick Mahomes under center. But Matt Moore finished the game. He went 10 for 19. He had 117 yards. He did throw a touchdown. Not the greatest stats, but what do you expect out of a backup quarterback behind a superstar like Patrick Mahomes? So keep in mind a couple things as we maybe plan for, as we should plan for, this Matt Moore backup quarterback matchup against Aaron Rodgers. So he's 35 years old, same age as Rodgers. He's been in the league since 2007. But the surprising thing is that Matt Moore was not even on an NFL roster back in 2018. He was pulled off of the street on August 26th, near the end of training camp, mind you, because backup Chad Henne suffered a season-ending fractured ankle. And now that fast forwards to Sunday night, where he is he's being tasked to fill a very big hole for the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, obviously, Kansas City, outside the quarterback position, they have a ton of weapons scattered all throughout that offense. You look at Travis Kelce, he's, in my opinion, hands down the top tight end in football right now. You look at Tyreek Hill, he's an absolute threat down the field at the wide receiving position. Sammy Watkins has found new life at wide receiver for the Kansas City Chiefs. And you think back just a couple weeks ago, week 1 of the NFL season, he had 198 yards, 3 touchdowns in just one game. I think it was off of like 9 receptions too. It was absolutely crazy. He just blew up on that first game. And then like Sammy Watkins, you look at LaShawn McCoy, he needs to be accounted for too at all times in their backfield. He's not maybe putting up, crazy stats, but he is a formidable challenge for that Packers defense and someone that we're definitely going to have to keep our eyes on. But granted all those offensive weapons, it's going to boil down to who's under center for the Chiefs. And Kansas City in general, or I guess more specifically I'll say, their offensive line is probably the worst or one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL. So don't let the stats fool you too much on this. I mean, if you look at their run blocking, it is ranked second to last, and then their pass blocking is ranked 6th overall, which is very impressive, but all the credit there has to go to number 15, Patrick Mahomes. With what he's able to do with his mobility, he's a young Aaron Rodgers. Let's just call it what it is. He's a young Aaron Rodgers with maybe a little bit more upside, but it's too much to tell. Really too early to sell. They're calling him the next coming of the quarterback position. Who's to say? But what he's able to do with his mobility, gets the ball out quick. That's why that offensive pass protection has the ranking that it does. But this is the same team that pretty much got Patrick Mahomes into this situation. So not so much the knee, but his ankle situation. He was constantly scrambling. He was constantly having to be mobile in order to be successful. And in the few wins that they were able to squeak out while he was battling that ankle injury, it was blatantly clear that if he wasn't injured, that they would be blowing out this teams. But because he had to get the ball out fast, it's just not a good thing. So it goes without saying that offensive line could be Kansas City's undoing. But on the defensive side of the ball, let's talk about a mirror image as far as Kansas City's defense and the Packers' defense. So Kansas City's defense is nearly identical to what we've seen from Green Bay. They rank 31 as a run-stuffing unit, and they're 1 rank below Green Bay, who sits at number 30. And then you look at they're ranked number 9th at rushing the passer, and they're 1 rank below the Green Bay, who sits at number 8. You add on the fact that Kansas City is also known for giving up a ton of yards throughout the course of a game. They give up 377 yards per game, but like the Packers, they keep the opponents off the scoreboard, where they only give up 21.4 points per game. So, I mean, these defenses are very similar. They both have defensive players that get to the quarterback. They have playmakers in the secondary. They're known for giving up yards. So it's going to be really interesting. I mean, the defenses are apples to apples, in my opinion, on what you're going to get. It's really going to boil down on that offensive side of the ball. I'll get to my 3 keys to victory in just a moment, but there are a number of things that Green Bay needs to do on Sunday night to come away with the W. So these are a little bit of added extras that I wanted to throw in there. So tackling will need to be a huge emphasis for Green Bay. Tackling was something that defense struggled with against Oakland, especially very early on. It seems like they couldn't get Jacobs down to save their life. But with players like Hill, McCoy, and Kelsey being extremely difficult to bring down, they have to bring up their tackling. Special teams will be another area that we will have to be watching closely, because field position and time of possession are going to be pivotal roles at the outcome of this game. And lastly, the stadium will obviously be rocking if we can't get off to a hot start. And what I mean by if we can't get off to a hot start and score points in the first 6, 7, 8 minutes of that game and take the crowd out of it, the silent count will be absolutely crucial for that young group of wide receivers that maybe are not used to playing in such a loud environment. And then this could also create a lot of opportunity for our running backs to eat away at Kansas City's poor run defense. These are a couple things that I'm looking at. There's a lot of different plots, twists to what could possibly go on at Kansas City. But since we are on the topic of running the ball, let's talk about these keys to victory. Now, keep in mind that my following keys to victory, I should have a little disclaimer that goes across the bottom, are with the assumption that Mahomes will in fact not play on Sunday night. So like I stated earlier, unless the Chiefs decide to light up the crack pipe, Kansas City should be without a star quarterback. These things sounded a lot more funny when I wrote them down on my script earlier. So key to victory number 1 is take away the run game. So more than any other game that we've played this year, I've had this as a key to victory before, but more than any other game that we've played, if we can completely take away Kansas City's run game, Green Bay should be able to dictate and control the entire flow of the game on Sunday night. I fully expect Andy Reid to get creative with how he handles Matt Moore under center with, either their quick screens or just screen plays in general to running backs. But he has to be shifting his focus to getting McCoy more running opportunities in this game and taking some of that pressure off of Matt Moore's shoulders. And why wouldn't he? We look at the Packers' run defense. Statistically, our defense is still at the bottom of the barrel. They're ranked number 26 overall in the league. They're giving up 4.9 yards per carry this season. However, that needle in the last 3 games has just slightly moved just a hair. We've given up 4.6 yards per carry in the last 3 games, and we've moved up to 23rd overall. So you see improvements. Our biggest weakness as a team, and I'm talking about both offense and defense, and I'm talking about the Packers, our biggest weakness needs to have a mass improvement in Week 8, and I'm talking about stopping the run game. Not only does that give us the edge on Sunday night, but it's going to create the foundation for that defense, for that team, and it's going to inspire confidence as we approach this second half of the season. Everything up to this point, when they talk about how stellar our pass rush is and how, kind of ball hawking in a sense of the word our secondary is, it's always been, if you can run the ball on Green Bay, you're going to have some success. And I think taking away that run game on Sunday night will be just that first key victory and a huge key to victory. The second key to victory kind of goes hand in hand with it. So with shutting down the run comes getting pressure on Matt Moore. So I fully expect Kansas City's 6th overall pass protection offensive line to plummet in the rankings after Sunday night's game. The lights will be bright on Arrowhead on Sunday night, and Moore will be feeling pressure both mentally and physically. The Packers' pass rush has been dormant the past couple weeks. They started out extremely hot. They led the league in quarterback pressures. And you still have on the edges both Preston and Zadarius Smith. They lead with 13 total sacks between these two. But they failed to register a single sack last week against the Oakland Raiders. They put a big old goose egg up there. And I know both Zadarius and Preston, they have a sack celebration that they are more than just kind of giddy to get out there, and they have to be salivating at what lies ahead with a backup quarterback and a struggling offensive line. I think that good things are going to happen with that pass rush on Sunday night. So the Packers need to make life uncomfortable for Matt Moore. That should go without saying. By doing so, it should keep Kansas City off the field, take the crowd out of the game, force some throws, create some turnovers, and it should be a wonderful thing. So stop the run. We're at get pressure on Matt Moore. And then my third one is to capitalize on opportunities. So this is kind of my John Madden moment of the video. I don't have these very often, but I could say something along the lines of, when I say capitalize on opportunities, the team that scores the most touchdowns will win this game. Here's to you, John Madden. Here's to you. There are a couple different areas that I intend to cover, though, with this particular key to victory. So first, yes, is to get the ball into the end zone when the opportunity arises. As I stated before, Kansas City, like Green Bay, allows the ball to be moved downfield. And with Aaron Rodgers coming off of a career game, he's going to be relishing in the spotlight of Sunday Night Football. I expect the Packers offense to keep chugging along. However, field goals in the red zone is not going to be the recipe for success at Arrowhead, and they will have to find ways to punch it in the end zone. Getting that kind of red zone offense has been a little bit of a thorn in the Packers' side throughout training camp, throughout the preseason, throughout the early games of the year. I mean, you look at that Philadelphia Eagles game, our only loss of the year was because we couldn't punch it into the end zone from the goal line, quite frankly. So that has to be an area of emphasis, a key to victory. Capitalize on that opportunity of scoring the ball. But on the other side of it, I'm also referring to the defensive side of the ball, and I'm looking at you, Kevin King, because do not drop potential interceptions and come up with the ball if it's knocked loose. I've seen more missed opportunities at taking the ball away than I'd care to even want to see in a single season. And the ability to capitalize when the opportunity presents itself is my final key to victory when playing on the road against a good opponent in a hostile environment. You have to come up with those turnovers. I don't want to see any drop interceptions. If that ball is slightly off, kilter or thrown off just to the wrong point, you have to come away with that takeaway. It's going to do so much to the momentum of that Packers team and taking the crowd out of it. So I've talked enough. I think it's time to go over my game predictions. So as I previewed in the intro part of this video, I have a very special 2 game predictions. So whether an injured Mahomes plays or not, I do think Green Bay will find themselves on the winning side of this football game. But because there is just that sliver of a chance, I did want to give you 2 score predictions. So if Mahomes plays, I have the Packers winning 24-20, a very close game. If Mahomes is out, however, I have the Packers putting up 34 points and Kansas City 13. So if you're asking yourself, Nariah, how is it the Packers score less points if Mahomes plays? He's a quarterback. He's not playing defense. He should have no influence over that whatsoever. Well, the answer is quite simple. So Mahomes on the field will shift the time of possession. It has to. He'll pick up more first downs, perhaps, where Matt Moore does not pick up first downs. And it will create less opportunity for Green Bay to score points, which kind of goes hand in hand with each other. But it will also give a boost. If Mahomes is out there, it's going to give a boost to that crowd. It's going to give a boost to that defense that they have to step up. They have to play better because they actually have a fighting chance in this case. But that'll make it all the more challenging for Green Bay. I do think that Mahomes should be out. I do think he will be out. In that case, Packers win 34-13. I see this one potentially starting out very close until a couple things go in our favor, but this could be or should be another blowout victory, and it all boils down to whether or not Patrick Mahomes plays. So thanks for watching. Thank you for checking out this video. Game time, Sunday Night Football, 7:15, 7:20 Central Standard Time. We're going to Kansas City. And tune in on Tuesday night, 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. I am going live, and the live feeds will be better. If you want to get notifications about that, hit that subscribe button, hit that notifications bell. As I mentioned before, comment down below, please. I don't want to be reading Kansas City comments for the next 2 days until kickoff. And it's all day Sunday at this point, too. I don't want to look forward to that. Comment down below. Let me know what you think the score is going to be. And until next time, I will see you on the internet. Thanks for watching.